Tragedies such as the Great Famine and the Black Death completely exhausted people in the Middle Ages, which slowed down scientific, artistic, and literary development, since they were faced with bigger issues. In contrast to the following movement, this era was very dark, and that's why it is called the Dark Ages. When everything settled, there was more space for creativity and technology, which led to brighter times. New land was discovered, and the advanced work from ancient civilizations were finally brought up to daylight, which inspired new scientific and artistic discoveries. The beginning of a new era that would revolutionize the world of art at the time and the one still to this day. The Renaissance was born in Italy in the 15th century, but it spread through Europe, in France, Germany, and the Netherlands, where bright minds recognized the need for advancement. This movement took place in both the end of medieval times and modern times. This chain of events happened when freethinkers decided to stop obeying to the close-minded and controlling church to finally start according a high value to knowledge that had to be explored. It began as a literary movement, with the antique texts being brought up to daylight. Mathematicians and artists reconnected with the ambitious creations of Greek and Romans, and they greatly evolved from this discovery. In fact, artists use mathematic knowledge to uplift their art and create new depths and compositions through the use of perspective and vanishing points. Art became a science since these techniques were highly mathematical. Masaccio's fresco, called Holy Trinity, is the first surviving painting that used tridimensional perspective. He was a pioneer of his time. The technique he used belonged to the Quattrocento period, in which artists learned to create 3D environments in 2D form. In this period, there was 3 techniques that were mainly used. Linear perspective is one of them. It was theorized in 1414 by Filippo Brunelleschi, and later revised by Leon Battista Alberti in 1435. This practice was used in ancient time but was never documented. Linear perspective is when an artist uses lines to create an illusion of depth on a flat surface, where all parallel lines converge into a vanishing point on the composition's horizon. This technique is often mingled with geometrical perspective, in which we depict 3D forms to represent a certain structure. There are often multiple vanishing points rather than just one. With the use of degrading colors to create depth, atmospheric perspective is a unique technique that also belongs to the Quattrocento period. This time is known from the work of Masaccio, Brunelleschi, and Donatello. The Renaissance is separated in 3 parts: Trecento, Quattrocento, and Cinquecento. We just covered Quattrocento, but let's continue with the first one. From 1300 to 1400, the use of shadows and different hues was what created volume. This time is known by the pioneers Cimabue and Giotto. In the 16th century, the Cinquecento period took place. By studying the techniques in art, masters like Bramante, Da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo made works of art that even surpassed some of antiquity's greatest treasures. Still, the art was mostly commissioned by the church. They wanted to inspire and control the masses. However, artists detached from them because artists could now get a patron, which was someone who supported and gave money to artists, musicians, and writers. So for the first time, thematics weren't only linked to religion. They could now create profane paintings, which meant they were not sacred nor biblical. Subjects like nature or the human body became very popular. A new ideology was brought by humanists who had a concern over the humanity rather than religion. The work created was very realistic to show the perfection and imperfection of the human body, which is pretty similar to Greco-Roman art. It might have been a little too realistic. In fact, people such as Andreas, Albrecht, and even Leonardo da Vinci studied anatomy in a way that had never been done before. They would dissect the bodies and then illustrate them exactly as what they saw, which was their only option before photography became a thing. Their research propelled the world of medicine, which made it greatly evolve, since now we knew the ins and outs of our bodies. With all these advances, art was now something that could be studied. With the emergence of academies, people could now learn about specialized things like sculpting, portraiture, anatomy, and celestial cartography. To obtain the title of artist, you had to master most of these specialties. It was the case for Brunelleschi, Da Vinci, Dürer, and Salinici. I have mentioned them a lot, so let's talk about prolific artist Leonardo da Vinci, who was a painter, sculptor, architect, and engineer. His most known work is La Joconde, aka the Mona Lisa. We can clearly see the use of the sfumato technique, because shadows are blended impeccably with oil paint. The realism is unreal. Even the background wasn't neglected. He used the atmospheric perspective by degrading the colors and creating a mist-like effect in the depth. Even if we see the effects of time on the painting, we can still imagine how splendid it used to be over 500 years ago. This oil painting on panel is the most valuable artwork in the world, so much that we can't even put a value on it. I would also like to give an honorable mention to the Sixtine Chapel ceiling painted by Michelangelo. Also, his marble Pieta statue, and his 6-ton David statue. The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli can also be a link to a sculpture we mentioned before. Yes, the Venus of Willendorf. Isn't it crazy how our art skill evolved? It used to be one of the best sculptures in prehistoric times. And now, 25,000 years ago, this is what the same figure looks like. It is important to know some of the developments that revolutionized the world during the Renaissance, such as the printing press, astronomy, the humanism ideology, painting and sculpture technique, world exploration, and even Shakespeare's work. However, at the time, the artistic renaissance was only experienced and known by the rich, who had access to education and, well, money. Normal people didn't have access to technology like we do, so information spread very slowly. You, who watched this video, are probably more aware about the Renaissance than a European adult at the time. Our world today still greatly benefits from the improvements and creations from the Renaissance, which shows how revolutionary this time was.